In this video, we discuss the new changes and features in iOS 13.5. Check it out. So iOS 13.5 was released today, and it's a very COVID-19 centric update headlined by the new exposure notification API that Apple alongside Google developed for applications to be able to incorporate. So let's talk about the new exposure notification API. Some people may wonder, is this a new application? Will I find a new COVID-19 app on my home screen when I update to 13.5? Will I find a new Apple-produced COVID-19 app in the App Store? And the answer to that question is no. This is not a standalone application. This is an API that developers can implement into their apps to supplement those apps. So this is not the same as the Apple developed COVID-19 screening tool that was released a while back. Number two, this API is a collaboration between Apple and Google. So yes, these are two rivals coming together for the common good. And it makes sense when you consider that these are two of the most dominant players in modern technology today, and without a doubt, the two most dominant players in the smartphone industry as a whole. Now, number three, this API is only available for public health agencies to incorporate contact tracing into their own application. So Joe Smo can't just go out and develop an application and incorporate this API. It has to be a public health agency approved by Apple to be able to incorporate this API into the app. Number four, the exposure notification API is built with privacy in mind, and we'll talk about that here in just a second. And then number five, it's completely opt-in. So users will have to opt in to receive exposure notifications on their phone, and they will also have to opt in to share a positive diagnosis if they've been tested. Now, with that being said, a user actually has to provide a verification code to authenticate whether or not they really truly had a positive diagnosis for COVID-19. So that means that you can't just go out there and arbitrarily say, hey, I've tested positive, when you actually haven't tested positive, because that would just sort of defeat the purpose of the whole thing. So again, just to reiterate, this is an API, not a standalone Apple application. So Apple and Google teamed up together to develop this API that public health agencies can incorporate into their apps for contact tracing. Now, as of now, being that iOS 13.5 was just released today, there is no such application available just yet, but they should be coming from public health agencies soon. In fact, there are several that are working on, several states in the United States working on applications that will incorporate this API very soon. So one of the biggest issues, one of the biggest problems with COVID-19 is that it's really just hard to know if you've been exposed to someone that's been infected. And that's where this whole thing comes into play. So basically, these are apps that agencies have developed that may incorporate this exposure notification API so that users like me and you will be notified if we happen to come in contact with someone that is COVID-19 positive. So that can obviously help us to be able to take action so we're not completely in the dark when we've potentially been exposed to COVID-19. Because oftentimes symptoms may be minimal, they may be actually non-existent, and they may be confused with some other type of symptom or problem. So contact tracing will help identify potential exposure using the tool that many people already have available to them, their smartphone. So that's where contact tracing sort of comes in. That's where the exposure notification API sort of steps in and says, hey, recently you were in contact with someone that was positive or that tested positive for COVID-19. You may want to take precaution. You may want to contact your doctor. You may want to self-quarantine or take whatever other necessary steps that it recommends. And that's why this is so cool, because lots and lots and lots of people have these smartphones in their pocket. They're traveling with them. So the infrastructure for contact tracing is already there. It's just a matter of taking advantage of that infrastructure, as Apple and Google have teamed up to do. So how does this all work? What technology is actually used? Well, Bluetooth. Yes, the same technology that you use to connect your AirPods is what's used primarily for contact tracing. So when two people are in close range with proximity detected by Bluetooth, their phones will anonymously share identifiers. And then if and when a person is diagnosed with COVID-19, they can have their device transmit a list of everybody they've been in contact with to the cloud. Now, of course, this is all done using anonymous identifiers. Now, the second person's phone will periodically download a list of everyone that has tested positive in their area. And if a match occurs, they will be notified and prompted to contact health authorities. So Bluetooth, that short distance network protocol, is what really makes all this possible. And privacy is at the fore here. There's no location information exposed or shared at all. Each user gets to opt in whether or not they want to receive exposure notifications. And if a person is diagnosed with COVID-19, it's up to that user whether or not they want to share. To take it a step further, temporary exposure keys are generated randomly, and all metadata with Bluetooth is encrypted to make it more difficult to identify an individual. So it's totally opt-in, it's encrypted, there's no location information shared. Privacy is something that both Apple and Google are taking seriously with the exposure notification API. Now I know that was a lot, but that's not all that you'll find new in 13.5. There's also the new ability to disable automatic prominence for group FaceTime calls. So if you go into settings, FaceTime, you'll see under the automatic prominence section where it says speaking. And you can just turn the speaking switch off to disable automatic prominence. And that makes it so that the tile of the person speaking within the group FaceTime call doesn't automatically get bigger when they start talking, which can be distracting, especially if you have a lot of people going on at the same time. And then there's also the new ability to share medical ID information during an emergency call. So if you call emergency services, your Apple Watch, your iPhone can automatically share information from your medical ID with emergency services personnel. So it can share things like primary language, allergies and reactions, medical conditions, etc., which can be helpful when it comes to providing you with assistance. And then there's the new feature that will automatically bypass the Face ID prompt and take you right to the passcode unlock screen when it detects that you're wearing a mask. So normally when the Face ID screen times out, it just kind of hangs right there at Face ID before displaying the enter passcode prompt. So I'll do it again. And it takes a second to get to the passcode prompt. But if you're wearing a mask like this one here, don't judge me, please. It will automatically bypass the Face ID prompt and just take you directly to the passcode unlock screen. Try it again. Because it knows you're wearing a mask, so it's like, hey, don't even bother presenting Face ID, just take them right to the passcode. Super simple, super easy. So ladies and gentlemen, what do you guys think about iOS 13.5? Let me know down below in the comments section. This is Jeff with 9to5Mac.